Remember last year when I told you the Panasonic Lumix FZ82 was discontinued? Well, it's back. Kind of. Even last year, Panasonic were adamant that they were axing their compact camera range and taking a machete to the range of bridge cameras they offered. Yes, they were going to concentrate solely on the Micro Four Thirds and the new line of full frame cameras that they've been developing over the last few years. So this step to bring back the Panasonic FZ82 is bigger than your average politician's U-turn, but one that's completely welcome in my book. If you've been following all of the news, you'll know that the new camera is going to be known as the Panasonic FZ82D here in Europe, the FZ80D in the United States. There have been some revisions compared to the previous FZ82 and we're going to talk about those. However, they're nothing too drastic that it would be designated the FZ92. So what has changed compared to my existing FZ82? Well, we have a new screen on the back. The rear screen on the camera, while it takes up the same amount of room, has almost double the resolution. It's now boasting 1840K dots. This has been paired with a new viewfinder. Not only is it bigger and brighter, the resolution as well has gone up to 2360K dots. Those increased dimensions of the viewfinder have also allowed for a greater magnification in the viewfinder itself, which will be really helpful. All around, I think these improvements are going to create a better, more usable camera. However, there is still a few things that could have been better. Unfortunately, there is no eye detect on the viewfinder like you'll find on a lot of cameras, and you're still going to have to use the LVF button on the back of the camera to swap between the screen and the eye piece. I know this was a big bugbear with a lot of FZ82 users. I can remember reading numerous posts on the forum of people complaining that once they put the camera to their eye, all of a sudden the focal point had changed when they'd taken their shot and they were getting out of focus images and they weren't very happy with it. What in fact was happening was their nose was touching the touchscreen. So if Panasonic had created some way of disabling the touchscreen while you were using the camera to your eye, I'm sure that would have again been a better option. Another difference between the FZ82 and the FZ82D is the little diopter wheel, which causes a lot of issues with it moving when you're using the camera. That has now been moved onto the other side of the viewfinder. Whether that will solve the problem, I don't know, or whether they've adjusted that diopter so that it doesn't move as freely. We'll have to wait and see. I haven't had the luxury of having the FZ82D in my hands, so I can't really comment on that at the moment, but hopefully if they've gone to the trouble of engineering moving the diopter onto the other side of the viewfinder, then perhaps they're aware of the issue and have solved it. Other changes include a USB-C port on the side of the camera so that you can charge the camera up at any point in time using something like this, a power bank, which is really handy. Ideal that if you're out in the field and you need to charge your camera, you can do with something that most of us carry around for our phones or other equipment anyway. However, because the battery size hasn't changed with the FZ82 to the FZ82D, we know that you can easily pick up spare batteries, aftermarket batteries, very cheaply, and they do the job quite well. So one scenario where I can see the Type-C charging port being a real benefit to the FZ82 is when you're shooting long time lapses. You'll have the camera sat on a tripod and you won't be able to access the battery box. So having a power bank plugged into the camera means you're never going to deplete the battery too much and you'll be able to get that fantastic long time lapse, especially if you're out in the field literally and you're not anywhere near a plug socket, so you couldn't possibly use one of those fake batteries. So one feature I'm really quite excited about is the Zoom Composite Assist feature. Now what that does, you've got a button which replaced the 4K button on the old model. 4K has moved somewhere else, don't worry, it's still there, but the button is now there on the top, handy next to the shutter, so what you can do is you press that button, the camera will zoom back out and you can refocus. So imagine you're in the field, you're out in a woodland, you're taking photographs of birds in a tree, you're at about 800 to 1200 meters, the bird moves, you can't see where it's gone, and by being able to pull back the zoom and then reposition, you can then zoom back in on your target. So what's staying then? Well, we've still got that 20mm to 1200mm lens. Few bridge cameras have a lens that is both as wide or as long, and yeah, that's a big benefit of this camera. Okay, so it's not a constant aperture lens like you get with the FZ80, but this is a real handy little bit of kit, and I'm pleased that they haven't changed that. Because of that lens, we also have to stick with the same image sensor, unfortunately. Yes, 1/2.3 of an inch isn't a big sensor. However, should they upgrade that sensor to something larger, like a 1-inch sensor, then you're going to lose the zoom. So yes, it's pretty much horses for courses. You can't have everything. Yeah, to get that 1200mm zoom, we've got to stick with a small sensor. It's 18 megapixels, so not fantastic compared to some other high-end cameras, but not that bad at all. Autofocus, yes, unfortunately that's the same on the new camera. We still have that contrast-based autofocus, which most of the time hits the spot, but not always. Unfortunately, because of the price point of the camera, I can't see them introducing phase detect autofocus like some of the higher end models have got. Macro shooting, yes, that's still an option with this camera, as is 4K photo and the post focus feature, which I've got to admit, two features don't really use that often. Optical image stabilization is still there on the camera, which was a fantastic feature as far as I'm concerned. I've taken handheld shots down to about 1/10 of a second and minimal sort of camera shake. Really handy, and I think it's one of the camera's best features. So what have we lost then? Well, rumours around the Wi-Fi feature is now no longer on the camera, so I don't know if that's going to affect the app as well as the photo transfer onto your phone. How do I feel about that? Well, it was hit and miss sometimes with photo transfer, and how often did I use it? Not much. As for the remote control, I thought that was really handy, being able to operate the camera using your phone while the camera was, say, 1 inch off the ground, something like that. And if the new one can't do that, then I think that's a bit of a miss. Of course, that's just discussion on Facebook forums and things like that, so I'll have to see if I ever get my hands on FZ82D, have a look through the menus and see if that Wi-Fi function is no longer there. Be a shame if it's gone, but I suppose if they weren't going to be developing the app anymore, then perhaps that's the reason to discontinue it. Lastly, what else has gone? Well, the cheap price. Fortunately, as with everything at the moment, prices are going up. And now, 5 years ago, I paid £250 brand new for my FZ82. Now, the new camera is coming in at £429. I suppose it's half a decade, we've got to expect prices to have increased. So yeah, that concludes my little evaluation of the FZ82D. Of course, until I get one in my hands, can't really compare it with the FZ82, but until that happens, we'll just have to see what the new cameras are able to produce in the hands of everyone who's buying one. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.